We're two sisters who believe that the purpose of life is to enjoy, create, and have fun. We believe that as humans, we can have anything we want, and things are always working out for us. Experience has taught us that the path to getting everything we want begins with ease. If you believe in miracles and happily ever after, or even if you just want to, then this is the podcast for you. Hi there, I'm your host, Kayla Rain.
And I'm Adria Shea.
Welcome back to Attract It with Ease. Adria, it's so good to have you back. I feel like it has been so long since you've been able to join me for a podcast recording, but I'm so excited to record with you today. How are you?
Oh, thank you. I'm great. And I'm very excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's start out with our gratitude. Tell me 3 things that you're grateful for and why.
Okay. The first one, I am grateful for the opportunity to go to New Orleans. When I found out I was going, I am embarrassed to admit I was not thrilled. It's a place that I've never been remotely interested in visiting. And I was feeling a little frustrated with my job, and I fell in love with it. I loved New Orleans. I am dying to go back. I had a great time. I met some great people, and I just feel so fortunate that I was sent there when I didn't know how good it was going to be for me.
I've always wanted to go there. I've never been. I've heard, that it can be crazy and that it's somewhat dirty, like it may be smelly in areas. But I have heard so many good things about the cuisine and the people and the architecture. I am so jealous.
It is. It's gorgeous. And I didn't notice any bad smells. There are some parts of town that are run down, but I only had good experiences there.
Awesome.
Second, I am so grateful that I was able to attend my son's wedding this last week. For various reasons, it looked to the last minute like I might not make it back into town on time. And I got there, and it was a beautiful wedding. I had a great time, and I'm just really, really grateful that I didn't miss that opportunity.
I've seen some pictures and a couple Instagram stories, and it looks like it was just incredible. And I saw that they did some fun, traditions that were non-traditional. And I thought, how wonderful. And I'm jealous. I wish I could have attended.
It was really amazing. The last one is a little bit personal, and hopefully I won't tear up. I can already tell. I say that because I can already tell that I'm going to.
It's okay.
But
you can cry.
I really had not, I don't want to cry. I really had not been feeling very lovable lately or very beautiful since my divorce. And I just had an opportunity that changed that, where I had an interaction with somebody and felt really attractive. And that was exactly what I needed at that point in my life. So it sounds super shallow, but I'm very grateful.
That's not shallow in the slightest. We all want that. Every person on this planet wants to feel like they're lovable and they're attractive, and you are. So I'm so happy that someone was able to do that for you. Yay. Well, my gratitude seems very superficial in relation to that. But number one that I have today is I'm so grateful for new sheets. I've talked about clean sheets before, but I wear bracelets that I never take off. Our listeners probably don't know that. I wear an armful of bracelets on my right wrist, and several of them are metal. And my bracelets have been tearing up my sheets because I often sleep with that hand underneath my pillow. And so I've had this big tear in my sheets for a while. And I'm one that really loves high thread count sheets. So we're talking like 800 thread count or higher. So they're not cheap. So to break down and buy sheets when you're trying to pay for a wedding and a bunch of other things, it wasn't in my budget, but I was able to work it out. I have brand new sheets. They're so soft. I love them. And I'm grateful for that today. Number 2, I'm going to talk a lot about wedding planning today on this episode, but number 2, because I've been planning everything for the wedding, I have found some awesome new makeup products that I had never tried. I found this cool eyebrow tool. I found new eyeshadow. I was trying to think of the word. I don't wear eyeshadow often, but I found this new eyeshadow stick that I love. I've never used that form of eyeshadow before. And I've found some cool lashes. I've tried magnetic lashes in the past and struggled a little bit with the glue on them. I'm not a big fan of it. And I found this other type of eyelash glue and eyelashes that are not magnetic, but same kind of idea. And I'm just thrilled with the new products that I found. And if I hadn't been wedding planning, I never would have spent money on these things. And I'm so, so grateful to have been introduced to so many cool things that I feel make me look better. And then number 3 is I'm so grateful that all of my wedding planning seems to be coming together. This whole episode, Adria, I want to talk about the fact that things are always working out for us. And we say that all the time. We've said it so many times on the podcast. We say it in the intro, things are always working out for us. And I believe that things are always working out for us. And I have to keep reminding myself of that because sometimes things feel like they're falling apart and it's like, oh my gosh, nothing's working out. How is this ever going to turn out? And I have to remind myself that if I just wait, it's not up to me to figure it out. I just have to trust the universe and things will work out. And they always do. And that has been the case with my wedding planning. And I'm so grateful for that as well. So all of that being said, I want to jump into today's episode. And I want to start with a quote that you've probably heard, Adria, but I love it. And it says, everything works out in the end. If it hasn't worked out, it's not the end. And I love that because to me, it's so inspirational because if you're going through something difficult and somebody says that to you or you read that, it makes you feel like, okay, this isn't the end. Like it's going to get better. It's always going to get better. And in hindsight, everything does. And you can see how things connect when you look backwards. You can see how one situation took you to the next situation, to the next situation. And oftentimes if the terrible thing that you felt like you were going through hadn't happened, you wouldn't have experienced the positive, wonderful thing that you now have or you experienced after that. But it's in that in-between stage that it becomes difficult. So I want to talk about some of my experiences of things that have been working out for me. And then Adria, I would love for you to share some experiences that you have of things that have worked out for you. And then I actually have a note from one of our listeners that I want to read about some things that have been working out for her. So that's my plans for this episode today. How do you feel about that?
Oh, I'm excited. Sounds great.
All right. Well, I'm going to start this off because mine kind of all go together, and I'm going to guess that yours might be a little bit more sporadic. So since mine kind of go together, I'm just going to kind of go through some details of things I've been working on for our wedding plans that have been super challenging, but that have all ultimately worked out. And I've talked a lot about wedding planning on the podcast. Dan and I have both been married before. So we are eloping this time. We're going to Yosemite. It's literally just going to be the two of us and our officiant. And so you would think, okay, there's not much to do. You don't have to plan food. You don't have to plan the flowers or seating arrangements or venue or whatever. You would think that the wedding would be a lot easier to plan. And I definitely thought that when we decided to go this route, but you'll see as I go through some of these details that there are a lot of things I have had to plan and so many obstacles that I've run into. And yet in the end, each of these things have worked out. So the first one, I probably mentioned this on a podcast episode recently, but I know I mentioned a while back that I was looking for some new hair. I've told our listeners that I wear fake hair. It's real human hair, but it's not my hair. My hair is thinning on the top, so I wear hair pieces. And I've worn hair pieces that I love for probably about a year and a half. I've been blonde. And at the time that I started wearing those hair pieces, my hair was blonde, but not naturally. And over time, as my natural hair, I have stopped processing it and just let it grow out. The blonde is pretty much gone in my hair. So it's gotten to a point where I feel like, okay, I need to transition from blonde to brunette because my real hair shows and it looks goofy. I also wanted to get new hair prior to the wedding so that the hair looked nice and new and clean and not old used hair extensions or hair pieces. So the company that I had been purchasing from before has been sold out of the new color, the brown color that I've needed for months, not 4 months, for many months. Like I keep trying to order them. I keep trying to order them. I finally emailed them and asked them for an update. They did not respond. I got really frustrated. I finally sent them a message on Instagram and was like, hey, can you tell me when this is going to be back in stock? They didn't respond. So I mentioned on a prior podcast, I had found a company in China that could custom make me my hair. And that was the route that I was going to go. I was just waiting on a quote. I finally got a message back from this first company on Instagram who said, basically, it's going to be 4 months or more before this hair is in stock. So I was waiting on the quote from China, and about a week later, just happened to check the website of the first company, and they randomly had the hair in.
Oh, my word.
And I was like, what? They told me it's going to be at least 4 months. And I'm like, I got to buy this right this second. What if they only have one? So wow. I hurried. I scooped it up. I don't know if you're familiar with Klarna. Klarna is like an option that lets you do like a payment in 4 payments. So I hadn't even like fully budgeted for all the hair, but I was like, okay, I'm buying it today. I only have to put 25% down. I can pay this over time. And I scooped it up and I got the hair, and I've now transitioned from brunette to blonde. And then on top of that, I was able to sell the blonde hair pieces because they were still in good condition. I sold them used and made some of my money back, and it completely worked out. So that was the first thing that I wanted to share. That's next
an awesome story.
Thank you. The next one, I have talked a lot on the podcast about my wedding dress and how I'm so excited about this custom dress. I had found a seller on Etsy who could take this dress I had found online that was only available in white and make it in black because I want a black wedding dress. And they did. They produced the dress and they did a phenomenal job. The tailoring is incredible. The fit is like a glove. But when I got it, I hated it. And the reason I hated it is the fabric is really heavy. It feels like a blackout curtain. It's super thick. We're getting married on the edge of a cliff. I wanted something that would flow a little bit in the wind. This is definitely not going to flow. It feels like it weighs 20 pounds. So when I put the dress on, although it fits me really well and it was made really well, I instantly was like, I cannot wear this to my wedding. I feel frumpy. I don't feel pretty. I don't feel sexy. It doesn't have the flow that I wanted. And I'm now at this point, 2 months away from the wedding. It had taken me 1.5 years to decide on a dress. I'm like, how in the world am I going to find a new dress in time? And 2 days later, I spent my day off searching for wedding dresses. I ran across a dress that was from a 2019 collection from one of my favorite designers. I did not know if it was available. Once again, I emailed multiple dress shops. I emailed the designer. I sent a message on Instagram to the designer. And one of about 5 emails that I sent responded back to me and said, this dress is still available to be ordered. So I did custom order the dress. I didn't have the money in my budget. I had to rearrange my budget. Things are very tight right now, but I was able to order the dress. I don't have it yet, but this one is not custom. It's standard sizes. So I know it will fit. If it doesn't fit, I can exchange it for a different size. And I actually like the dress a whole lot more than the one I originally ordered. So I know that probably all of this happened just so I would end up with the dress that I did, because after 1.5 years of searching, I had never run across this dress, or I would have ordered it in the first place. But that definitely worked out for me. When I was asking for time off for the wedding, I had just started a new job. So that was something I said in the interview. Hey, just so you know, I'm getting married in October and I'm going to need time off. They said, okay. Well, Dan had requested time off at his job, and he requested a block of, I think, 11 days. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's a lot for me to ask off. And that last day flows into a new week. And I thought, there's no way I can ask for time off over 3 weeks, because the end of the first week, the full second week, and moving into the third week, I was like, I can't do that. I'm going to just have to end the honeymoon on Saturday and not continue it till Sunday. So I submitted my time off request. I recently got my schedule for October. And not only did I get all of the honeymoon off, but he gave me the day before and the day after, which I had not asked for, but I had wanted. And so I ended up getting, I can't count, but something like 11 or 12 days off in a row when I was worried about just getting the original 8 or 9 that I needed. So that was incredible. And now we get to extend our honeymoon into that third week. So that worked out for us. Getting our marriage license. Okay. So we're getting married in California. So we have to get a license for California. And we happen to live right on the border of Nevada and California. And the closest county clerk office is over an hour away. So that was the one that I reached out to try and schedule an appointment because it was by appointment only. I call them to try and get an appointment, and it's basically the end of September before they can get us in. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is cutting it close. What if something happens? What if it was also a day I was scheduled to work? I'm like, how am I going to get this traded? So I went ahead and scheduled the appointment, but I was really kind of stressing about that date. Well, my next day off, I asked Dan, hey, it was a Friday. I said, do you think you can get this day off? Because let's just take the day and drive to one of the further locations that allows you to do walk-ins and see if we can, even if we had to sit there for 4 hours, let's see if we can just get our wedding license out of the way. So he took that Friday off. We drove 2.5 hours. We walked in. We didn't even have to wait. We sat down, we got our marriage license, we turned around and we drove home. So that was one of those where we probably could have worked out the September one, but I would have had to trade shifts. It would have been more challenging. Dan would have had to get the day off too. This one, we now have the license, it's out of the way. That totally worked out for us. All right. I mentioned this on one of the podcast episodes, but I'll remind you of the situation with our wedding photographer. We had booked someone for last year because we were supposed to get married last year. And when we reached out to him to reschedule for this year, he was not booked for October 1st, which is the day we are getting married, but he was booked for the 2nd and supposed to be flying out on the 1st. And so it looked like we were going to have to find a whole new photographer. We had already negotiated a special price with him. He was giving us a discount because Dan is also a photographer. And I thought, oh my gosh, how are we going to find an affordable wedding photographer in Yosemite? We really thought we were going to be able to book with this guy. It turned out that we were able to negotiate for him to leave by noon. So we're doing wedding photos the night before at sunset. We're doing the ceremony and wedding photos the day of at sunrise. And he'll wrap up by noon and take off to catch a flight to go to his next wedding. And it just worked out that he was willing and able to squeeze us in before his wedding he was shooting the following day. So that one worked out for us. And I also mentioned that he gave us back our deposit from what we had put down and lost last year when we had canceled. And he applied it towards the cost of the wedding photos this time around. So we saved that money as well. Oh, okay. Now we have the wedding cake. And you'd think, okay, you don't need a wedding cake, but I wanted the tradition of cutting a cake and some photos. So I just was looking for a very small cake, like what you would see as the top of a wedding cake, essentially. So I was looking for bakeries, and there's literally nothing in the Yosemite area. No one that will deliver in the Yosemite area none that I could find. And I'm sure it would have been a fortune to try and work that out for just a teeny tiny little cake. And so I was thinking, okay, I guess we're not going to be able to have a wedding cake unless I want to bake one while we're at our Airbnb or something. But then I ran across Goodbelly. If you've not found that website or aren't familiar with it, you should check it out because you can order food from anywhere in the US and have it shipped to you. And we're having a tiny little cake made by the cake maker from I think Cake Wars, one of the winners on there. And he's making us a tiny little wedding cake, and it's going to be air shipped to our house on dry ice. And we're going to take it to Yosemite with us. And
that's incredible.
We found a way to have a small little wedding cake. So we got that ordered and it's on its way. The wedding officiant was a tricky one because, yes, you can hire officiants in Yosemite for quite a bit of money, but we're not inviting anyone to the wedding. So we wanted it to be a specific special person to marry us, not some random stranger. And so Dan had asked one of his best friends, and his best friend had committed. And that was over a year ago when we first got engaged. And now, as plans have changed and the year has changed and his situation has changed, he is, back and forth with a job where we don't really know what his stability is going to be or his finances are going to be. And the one thing that I told Dan from day one was whoever marries us, they're not staying with us. They're not staying at our Airbnb. This is our honeymoon. We need our time, our privacy, our space. So they're going to have to find their own housing. They're going to have to figure it out. And I knew as we were getting closer that his friend was probably not in the financial position to come to Yosemite. He's in Louisiana at the moment, as well as pay to stay in Yosemite and then just marry us and then not get any other time with us. So it became okay, who are we going to have marry us? And Dan was able to ask his very best friend, who he had not asked initially because his very best friend is married and we didn't want to have guests at the wedding, but we did ask him to marry us, and he's going to become ordained, and he and his wife got their own Airbnb in Yosemite and are very understanding of the fact that we don't want them staying with us. And yes, we may go to brunch with them on the wedding day, but they're not going to get time with us in Yosemite. And they're totally okay with it and totally willing to put out the money and willing to be there for us. And I just feel so grateful to have someone that means something to us be officiating the wedding, but also be willing to spend the money and the time and energy to come all the way to Yosemite to do that for us. So that was something that worked out for us. And then the last thing that I have on my list, Adria, is the end of our honeymoon we're spending in Napa. And I'm so excited about it. But when we first booked Napa, it was clear back the beginning of this year, and the wineries were all closed. All of wine tasting was closed due to COVID. And we were crossing our fingers that they were going to open up in time. And we kind of were thinking we may have to have a plan B in case they don't. Well, the wineries, for the most part, have reopened, even though there's still a mask mandate in place. But what I've recently discovered is the wineries that are open, almost all of them require advance booking. And with advance booking, that means advance payment. And I've been budgeting for the honeymoon, budgeting for the wedding, trying to figure out, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And I have once again been able to rearrange my budget to be able to change what items I'm paying for when, to be able to pre-book some of the places that I want to visit, some of the wineries. Dan has no say in this. He doesn't know that, but he doesn't, because I'm just planning the whole thing. And if it was up to him, we would just show up and then everything would say, sorry, you don't have a reservation. So no, I think he'll be thrilled. But the one that I'm most excited about is we're leaving Napa on Saturday morning, and we have to check out of our hotel at 11. But I found a wine experience that morning where we can go to one of the high-end wineries out there and work with the winemaker to custom make our own wine. And we get to take that bottle home with us. And so it's a wine making experience that we'll be able to end our honeymoon with. And I got the 2 last reservations for that experience. Like, it's now sold out. It's booked. I was able to pay for it, book it, end our trip on a high note. And I feel incredibly grateful, because if I hadn't looked into it and we had just shown up like the last time I went to Napa, which was years ago, you could just walk in and do tastings at tasting rooms. And there are very few that are allowing that right now. We would have shown up, spent all of this money on a resort, and not been able to go wine tasting. And so I'm so excited that all of these pieces of the wedding and the honeymoon planning are working out for me. And I wanted to share that with our listeners, because every single one of these things at some point felt like, what am I going to do? Or, oh my gosh, things are falling apart. Or, oh, this is a nightmare. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it. And every single one of them has worked out for me. And I just want to reiterate that things are always working out for us. So Adria, I asked you to come prepared with some things to talk about. So why don't you share with our listeners some of the things that you felt in your life maybe wouldn't work out, but ultimately did?
Okay. I love that we're talking about this because I think it's so easy to focus on the things that aren't working at the moment or the places that we feel stuck. So when you asked me to make this list, my first thought was, well, I'm not going to be able to come up with more than one or two times that something's worked out for me.
Wow.
And so I was feeling a little resistant. I actually didn't, I thought, what's the point of sitting down and trying to make a list and failing at making my list? But I was
Wow.
able to make quite a list. So thank you for the
Good.
challenge.
Yes.
The first one on my list is from a long time ago when I was pregnant with my third kid. And it was a surprise pregnancy, and we didn't have room for 3 kids in our car. And I remember Dad saying to me at that time, things always have a way of working out. Don't worry about it. It'll be okay. And that statement just made me feel so much better. And of course, he was right. By the time the baby came, we were able to get into a slightly bigger car. We had room for all 3 kids. So it was a non-issue.
I love that.
There was another time, there's been many times over the course of my life because my ex-husband went through several periods of unemployment, but there was a time right around Christmas time when we had Christmas taken care of. An organization had sponsored gifts for the kids, but we didn't have really any food to get through the month in the house. And we went to a Christmas celebration with one of his coworkers. And when we left and got home, we saw that someone there had loaded the back of our van with groceries. And so it was completely unexpected. We were never sure exactly which person it was, one of his coworkers, but it just made it possible for us to get through the month without that stress. So that was such a great opportunity for us, such a blessing. There were times, periods of unemployment when I didn't know how we were going to make the rent. I'm thinking of one time in particular when our landlord had said, you're going to be evicted by the end of the week if you don't come up with the rent. And we thought we had exhausted all resources. And at the last minute, someone came in and saved us, basically gave us a personal loan.
Wow.
So again, things have always worked out for us. I've had kids that have needed medical treatment that I didn't know how I was going to pay for. I've had a couple kids that had some extensive treatment. And I'm thinking of one circumstance, several things that actually seemed negative to us at the time happened. Well, I guess I'll just go ahead and say we had a child that needed some residential treatment and some intensive mental health care, and we didn't have a way to pay for it. And this child was frequently getting in trouble with the law, and eventually the state stepped in and said, if we take over custody, then her treatment will be paid for. And that was it seemed like a bad thing at the time, to some extent, to have someone come in and say, we're going to take over custody of your child. But it enabled my child to get the care that she needed, and really was a burden lifted from us. And she had a great care team, a great set of social workers that really wanted us to remain as involved as possible. So it was like we were still the parents, but we just didn't have the financial burden. So that was a real miracle for us. And definitely not how I saw things working out as we were fighting those battles, in the months leading up to that.
For sure.
I had an extensive surgery a few years ago. I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it, and several things came together, and I had the right amount of money miraculously in the weeks before the surgery. Quite a few things that have worked out for me in regards to my divorce, my recent divorce. I had a car, but I was commuting an hour away to work, and it was not a reliable car. And now I'm in a car that I can count on and that gets me there. So every day I was thanking my car for lasting one more day and making it possible for me to get to work. And that's something I don't even think about now, except for to be grateful for it. There's never a question, is my car going to be reliable enough to get me where I'm going? So
That's
that
wonderful.
definitely worked out. Similarly, I didn't know how I was going to, I have primarily been a stay-at-home mom and only worked part-time. So when I was separated and then divorced, I wasn't sure how I was going to have adequate income to provide for myself and my family. And someone at the company that I was working at retired. They offered me her job. So I suddenly went from 12 hours a week to 40 hours a week, making more than I'd ever made before. The timing was perfect, and that worked out for me. Some of these things I've talked about on the podcast before, but I wasn't sure where I was going to live after my divorce. And that worked out on more than one occasion. And then just most recently with my newest job, I was living in Florida and not able to see my family as much as I felt that I needed to. And I had been told, because it was a new job, that I could not apply for another position within the company. But I decided to apply for another position in the company anyway, one that would allow me to get back to Utah more frequently and spend more time with my kids. And I got that job, to my amazement.
Yay!
So not only was I I didn't have all the qualifications they were asking for, but I also, I had only been working for a few months. And so I had been told that we could not apply for another job at that point. So I just have this long list of, and when I look back at my life, I can see now that things always work out. Over and over, things work out. And that still doesn't mean that there aren't times that are scary or that I'm sad or I wonder how it's going to work out. But because I've reflected on this a little bit, I'm able to see that I can get through anything.
Absolutely. I love that. That's so true. I think we all have, on a regular basis, it doesn't matter what our faith is like or how much we believe or how much we know we have the power to control our circumstances and the outcome. It's still, when you're going through something challenging, it can make you wonder, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I don't know how this is going to work out. I don't know how I'm going to make that work. And as we've said over and over again, the how isn't up to us. We just have to have faith and trust that it will, and give it time. We can't control the timeline either, but it will work out, and it always does. So Adria, I want to wrap up here by sharing an email that we received from one of our listeners. And this listener emails us probably about once a month with updates, and I sincerely appreciate that. For their privacy, I'm not going to share who it is, but this listener will know it's them. But this is the most recent email, and it says, "Hi. So I have been doing the money in the mail." We referred to that on a previous podcast, meaning she's trying to manifest money in the mail. She says, "But I'm not making it a thing, just every so often. And then I've also been spending money, not worrying about not being able to cover bills, by knowing that when I need it, it will be there. Now, mind you, when I've been spending money, it's been on a room for my son and his pregnant girlfriend who had to leave the place they were staying, and to keep him in good legal standing. Within a couple of days, I got a check for what the cost of the room was. And a couple of days later, I got a check to do a secret shop for Walmart that covered his legal thing. Like you say, things are always working out for me." And I just thought that was so sweet. I love the update. I love that she's listening and trying to implement some of the things we've talked about, like, just manifest money in the mail, just, put it out there. Like, there's no emotional attachment to that. Just say, I'm getting money in the mail. And she's doing that. Now, in a previous email a while back, she told me she had actually lost her job. And we all know how devastating it can be to be unemployed. And she now has another job working the front desk at a hotel. And I'm just so happy for her. I'm so happy that she's an avid listener. She's getting something out of the podcast, and that just like us, she's seeing that things are always working out for us. And like you said, Adria, it just gives hope when things are difficult to know and realize like every other time in my life, things have ultimately worked out. And again, back to the quote I started with, everything works out in the end. If it hasn't worked out, it's not the end. So just give it some more time. So I want to wrap up with our action item for our listeners. And just like I challenged you to do, Adria, I want our listeners to take some time and write down a list of 10 things that have happened to them in their lives that at the time they were going through it, they didn't feel like it was going to work out. And then it ultimately did. Come up with a list of 10 things, listeners. And like Adria, you'll probably feel like, oh, I don't think I have 10. But when you start really reflecting back on your entire life, you're going to see there are so many things when you take the time for it. I mean, everything I listed is current, is what I'm going through right now. If things are working out for me on a daily basis with my wedding planning, I can tell you that throughout the period of my life, there's been far more than 10 things that have worked out for me. So come up with your 10. And then once you have it, take some time to really think about and feel gratitude for those things that have worked out for you. And then remind yourself, things are always working out for you. And if it's not working out, it's not the end.
I hope that some of our listeners will write in and share some of those things, because I'd love to hear the ways that life has worked out for them as well.
Absolutely. And it's been a while since we've received a new review, but I'm still going to put it out there. For the whole year of 2021, we have essentially a giveaway going on. Adria, would you like to tell our listeners what that is?
Yes, if you leave a review of our podcast, then you'll be entered, and each week we will choose someone who will receive a custom bracelet with their theme word of the year. These bracelets can be seen on our website. They're really beautiful.
And if you don't know what we're talking about with theme word, go back and listen to episode 1. Episode 1 is all about choosing a theme for the year. Once you've selected your theme, if you leave us a written review on any platform, you will be entered to win a bracelet, unisex bracelet, that has your theme word on it to remind you that that's your theme for the year. That's it for this week, Adria. It was so good to have you back. Thank you for joining me, and I'll talk to you next week.
It sounds great.
Bye-bye.